Hey there, welcome back. Ready to dive in again. Today, we're tackling a question that's been bugging me, honestly. Is education about shaping us? Or is it more like controlling us? We're cracking open this book, The Spirit of Education by Gustave Le Bon. And let's just say I don't think this one's going to be a light listen, but it's going to get us thinking.
Oh, it's a fascinating choice. Le Bon was writing over a century ago, like way back there, but so much of what he said about education still fits today. It's kind of wild.
Right. Like even the title, The Spirit of Education, tells you this isn't some beach read. But Le Bon was onto something. He saw education as this huge force, something that could either lift humanity up or, hold us back. And he was writing right when education systems were going through this massive change. So it was a pivotal time.
It really was a turning point. And the thing is, Le Bon wasn't just some guy with an opinion. He was a doctor, a social psychologist, even did some anthropology. The guy was plugged into what made society tick. And he saw how education was changing things, for better or worse.
Totally. And it wasn't just about like bad teachers or boring classes. He went way deeper. One of his main points is that education isn't just about filling your head with facts. It's about shaping who you become, your values, your character, even, and I love this, your soul.
It's true. Think about a time you learned something that really lit you up inside. A book, a teacher, anything. That's the soul of education Le Bon was talking about. It's bigger than memorizing stuff, bigger than checking boxes on a test. It's about changing from the inside out.
Okay, now you're giving me chills. So it's not just about getting a job, it's about becoming a certain kind of person. And that obviously has huge consequences for the kind of society we end up with. And that's where this whole misuse of education thing comes in, right?
Exactly. Le Bon was really worried about systems that churned out obedient thinkers instead of, people who challenge things. He worried about what happened when you teach people to just follow the rules and accept whatever they're told without questioning.
So a society full of yes men, basically, is headed for trouble. I can see why that would make him nervous.
Absolutely. He saw that lack of critical thinking as a huge weakness. Societies that can't change with the times, that can't challenge what everyone thinks is true, well, they're going to crumble eventually.
Good.
He even said blind obedience was the death knell of civilizations throughout history, not messing around.
Wow. Okay, so critical thinking is like the big weapon against this misuse of education. But what did he think would actually happen if we didn't have that? Like, what were the real world consequences he saw?
Well, for one thing, you get people who are easily tricked. If nobody teaches you how to question information, how to think for yourself, it's way easier to fall for propaganda, fake news, even leaders who sound good but are actually bad news.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's more than just being smart, like book smart. It's about being able to see through the BS, navigate the world with your eyes wide open.
Exactly. And I don't think he meant we got to be cynical about everything. It's more like developing the skills to judge information, come to your own conclusions, and be able to have real, thoughtful conversations about stuff, even when it's hard.
So critical thinking, then, is the super important life skill that affects everything from our own choices to, like, how well our whole society functions. That's a big deal.
It really is. And honestly, with the amount of information thrown at us these days, I think it's more important than ever to be able to think for ourselves.
It's like we're talking about more than just school, though, right?
Mm.
Like even outside of class, we're learning stuff all the time, picking things up just from living.
You're totally right. And that's where this idea of the hidden curriculum comes in Le Bon's term. It's like education isn't just about classrooms and textbooks. It's happening everywhere. Our families, where we live, the stuff we see in the media, all of it shapes how we see the world, even if we don't realize it's happening.
So it's like this invisible force field or something. Makes you wonder, what kind of hidden curriculum is messing with us today? Like what messages are we soaking up without even knowing?
That's the big question, isn't it? Think about when you were growing up, what did people tell you about success? What did happiness look like according to everyone around you? Those unspoken rules, those ideas everyone just takes for granted, that's the hidden curriculum doing its thing.
Okay, yeah. So it's like society's expectations about jobs, relationships, even how we're supposed to act online, right? Are those choices we're really making, or are we just following some invisible script?
Exactly. Le Bon was especially worried about how this hidden curriculum messed with social class. He said it often made things worse for people who were already disadvantaged, even if nobody was trying to do that.
So over 100 years ago, people were already worried about whose voices were being heard, whose stories got told. Makes you think about how important it is to have different kinds of people represented in everything, not just in schools.
Absolutely. Like, whose ideas matter? Whose experiences do we count as normal? Those are questions we got to ask all the time. Because if we don't, this hidden curriculum thing can keep some people down and give others all the advantages without anyone even meaning to.
It's like we almost need a hidden curriculum detector, something to tell us when these invisible forces are messing with our heads so we can decide if we want to go along with it or not.
Love that. We got to be smarter about the information coming at us, always questioning what we're being told and who's telling us. And we got to think about the messages we're putting out there too, even if we don't mean anything by it, what we say, what we do, the choices we make.
Okay, so now we're talking about critical thinking on a whole other level. It's not just about analyzing information, it's about questioning everything, even the air we breathe.
Exactly. And that can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It means we got to question our own assumptions, our biases, even our own identities.
And that brings us back to what Le Bon thought we should be doing instead. If this passive, go along with it kind of education is the problem, what's the solution? What's the cure? So we've talked about the downsides, right? Passive learning, that sneaky hidden curriculum. What did Le Bon actually want us to do about it? What's the alternative?
Well, it wasn't like he wanted everyone to just become a rebel and reject everything they're taught. He still believed knowledge was important, but
Yeah.
it's the starting line, not the finish line. He pictured education that really focused on critical thinking, creativity, and skills you can actually use.
So not just memorizing facts and formulas, you got to be able to do something with them out in the real world.
Exactly. He was all about knowledge, but knowledge without action. Kind of pointless, maybe even dangerous, he thought.
Dangerous. How so?
Think about it, someone with their head stuffed full of facts, but no clue how to use them. Or even worse, no idea if they should use them. That's where things go off the rails.
Ah, I see what you mean. Like having a powerful tool but zero safety training. You could cause some real damage.
Exactly. Le Bon was big on education, giving people not just smarts, but a moral compass, a sense of responsibility for what they do with what they know.
Got to connect the head and the heart, right? Knowledge, Plus, the wisdom to use it right.
Right on. And another thing Le Bon was way ahead on, personalized learning. The idea that everyone learns differently, has their own strengths, that cookie-cutter education just doesn't work. He was saying this back in the 1900s.
That's wild. We're still trying to figure that out now with all this talk about personalized learning plans and different learning styles.
Goes to show how sharp the guy was. He was all about helping each person grow in their own way, not trying to force them into the same mold.
That's a cool idea, but it also feels kind of huge, you know? How do we actually live that way? Take Le Bon's big ideas and make them real in our own lives.
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
I think it starts with just noticing. Le Bon would want us to pay attention to that hidden curriculum we talked about, the one that's always running in the background. What if we swallow it as truth without even realizing? Are we really thinking for ourselves?
And maybe it's about choosing to learn, too, even when it's not required. The books we pick up, the podcasts we listen to. Hey, we're doing it right now. The people we hang out with, it all shapes us.
100%. It's about deciding what we let into our heads and hearts, taking charge of our own growth.
And I think encouraging that in other people, whether it's our kids, our friends, whoever, get them asking questions, exploring new stuff, never getting stuck.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
What Le Bon reminds us is education isn't some box you check off. It's a lifelong thing. It's about discovering who you are. And it's on all of us to build a world where everyone gets that chance.
Now that is something to think about. So as you go about your day, here's a little challenge from Le Bon. What's one small thing you can do to think more critically and maybe inspire someone else to do the same? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.